They took the world of advertising.
When you see advertising, your eyes should tear up, you should grab your throat, your ears should explode, and you should almost pass out.
And flipped it on its ear.
I had chutzpah.
We were all like rock stars.
Cha-cha-cha.
Bernbach's great innovation was marrying art directors and copywriters together.
Sex was in the air. People sort of breathed it.
We made Mad Men look like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm.
Oh, we knew we were special. We were all part of one big revolution.
In this ever-evolving business, there's a new revolution.
Things travel much faster now. Ideas travel faster.
You put some content out there and you see what sticks.
Bottom line, it's advertising.
Meet the creatives who broke the rules.
It's an idea come to life. It's an idea that rocks you to the core.
This program is made possible through the generous support of the One Club and members of 13.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look at me, listen to me, talk about me. Now buy my product. This is a pitch, the essence of advertising. I'm Isaiah Mustafa. You may also know me as the Old Spice Guy. In the 1950s and 60s, during a time of great social upheaval in America, a group of young copywriters and art directors in New York made it their mission to reflect the changing culture by reinventing the business of advertising. Some of their exploits have been made famous by AMC's award-winning series, Mad Men. But in the next hour, you'll meet some of the real Mad Men and women who sparked nothing short of a creative revolution. And you'll meet a new generation of revolutionaries unleashing their creativity in the digital age. So watch this show. You'll laugh. You'll cry. You'll think. That's my pitch to you.
Even before the internet, everybody said we're so bombarded by advertising that it's so hard to stand out. And now with the internet, you can't even begin to mention the numbers. I mean, it's just eyeball spinning and head turning. We are just inundated from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep.
We've taken advertising through the most obvious way: magazines, newspapers, television, radio, billboards.
On garbage cans, on buses and subways, on the road and in the air, on the internet, and on our smartphones. In the advertising mecca that is New York's Times Square, every available surface is exploited.
It's one of the backbones of a consumer economy. It's what allows the economy to flourish and grow.
Every come-on, every pitch, every spiel represents someone's idea, a big idea. And every message begins with a story.
You're storytelling. I mean, when you advertise, you're telling a story.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
Take 2 Alka-Seltzer.
I've always done it by telling a little story.
I heard a deranged clown lurks in these woods. I heard Little Caesars has pizza for $5.
You heard right!
The ancient Greeks, Socrates, the Bible, Quentin Tarantino, it's all storytelling.
Firework colors turn our world upside down. I hope you like water, because we're neck deep in the sweet waters of friendship and trust. You see, when your man smells like the fresh scents of Old Spice, you can go anywhere. Unless, of course, you prefer to stay in.
So I think that you have to start with the story.
You're telling a story about a product or a service, and you're trying to tell it in a way that gets everybody's attention. And you're trying to tell it in a way that makes people nervous if they don't buy it or try it.
Mum's the word. New Mum cream deodorant.
Great stories, great stories. Bottom line, it's advertising. It was great advertising. It entertained you, it told you a story.
Got the message?
20th century was the American century. We are everyone's focus. Everyone wants to be here. The bounty of stuff when you go into a supermarket and you're just knocked out by all the aisles, that didn't exist in Europe or in the East. It was completely different. So we commodified this huge system of products and selling things through advertising and marketing.
Television was introduced to the American consumer at the 1939 World's Fair. But manufacturing TV sets was put on hold when World War II began.
Network television comes into existence in 1949, gets enormous and rapid uptake in the homes.
By television, American business has found a most effective advertising medium.
You have the great boom of returning veterans, investment in the economy. You have the suburban household boom and then the baby boom. Families moving to the suburbs, spending on all kinds of things.
In the early days of television, advertising agencies wrote and produced many of the programs.
Carnation Evaporated Milk presents the George Burns and Gracie Allen Show.
Advertising in the early years is very quaint. Anybody who looks at it today would see that it was mostly stand-ups by the hosts of the shows, you know, jingles that were actually sung live on the shows, like in the Texaco Star Theater.
Oh, we're the men of Texaco. We work from Maine to Mexico. There's nothing like this Texaco of ours.
Agencies soon adopted the magazine approach, placing ads on different programs across the TV schedule.
Quotes me on this.
And raking in 15% of every media sale.
You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. Pepsodent.
Rosser Reeves actually was probably the greatest and most successful huckster in the history of advertising.
A preacher's son from Virginia, Rosser Reeves evangelized his unique selling proposition, the one thing that made a product superior to its competitors.
M&M's milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
And so the role of advertising is to identify that key differentiating fact.
Get with it, kids. New package, new flavor, new formula too means brighter smiles for me and you.
To embed it in the advertising and to repeat it over and over and over again so that it is completely associated with the image, the awareness, and the memorability of that brand or product.
Pain, anxiety, pain, fatigue, pain, pain.
In 1961, Reeves wrote the now classic, Reality in Advertising.
The book-length argument to advertising people saying why they should never, ever, ever change their campaigns. And why you should just keep, not just a campaign, but individual ads. You should never even change out the individual ad.
For fast, fast, fast relief.
Agencies received a commission on all their clients' advertising spending. Well, under a commission system where you're getting 15% of all the spend, if you never ever change your advertising, every additional insertion of that ad is incrementally more profitable than the last insertion of that ad.
Reeves' firm, the Ted Bates Agency, became the most profitable in the world in the years after World War II.
It was awfully easy to sell, so that all you really needed were kind of attractive WASP men to take clients to lunch and then place their advertising, and it would sell. Then as there got to be more and more merchandise available and there was more competition and it got harder to sell, then people like David Ogilvy started appearing and doing it better than other people.
David Ogilvy, Rosser Reeves' brother-in-law, was a debonair Brit.
The consumer's not a moron. She's your wife.
Schweppes decided to invade the United States market, and our client appeared, an Englishman who was going to manage the office in New York called Commander Whitehead. And we persuaded him to be the sort of personal embodiment of the image of Schweppes, to appear in all the advertisements.
Ogilvy came to stand for something utterly opposite and contrary to what Reeves stood for. Where Reeves really stood for assaulting consumers with repetitive advertising, Ogilvy was the avatar of brand imagery.
Schweppes quinine water is famous all over the world.
His theory was really that people were attracted to the qualities of a brand, in a way the aesthetics and the meaning and the values of a brand. And that's really what he meant by brand imagery.
We spent a king's ransom on researching the reaction of consumers to advertising.
He was a very, very strong believer in sales. So in that sense, he and Reeves were exactly alike. The job of advertising is to sell the product, to get those cans off the shelves. But Whereas Reeves said the way to do it was just to hammer it into people's heads.
Fast, fast, fast relief.
Ogilvy was about things like the man in the Hathaway shirt with the eye patch. It was about giving the values of a brand or the aspirations that a consumer might have toward a brand.
And this morning, like any other, begins with a proper breakfast, an egg.
It was really about a sense of values and aesthetics.
You must eat properly every day of your pretty life.
Soon Ogilvy had a rival in the Bronx-born Bill Bernbach.
I think after you get the information from research, you've just begun your work. And I think we are fairer to research by having this attitude, because we don't ask research to do what it was never meant to do, and that is get an idea.
I'm not going to try it. You try it. I'm not going to try it. Let's get Mikey. He hates everything. He likes it.
The work coming out of Doyle Dane Bernbach was vaudevillian humor. It was much more ethnic.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Cut.
In its character and taste.
You don't persuade people through the intellect. You do it through the passions.
Bernbach was much more consistent with the rhythms of the 1960s.
The world changed. Suddenly, the baby boomers were out there, and they were, 18, 20, 22, and they were marching, and they were changing things.
It was happening across every spectrum of society. Government, religion, education, all these things were being assaulted and questioned. And so advertising was an essential part of that.
Creative revolution in advertising was a moment in time when writers and graphic designers took over the management of the agencies and the leadership of the industry culture, when business culture at large recognized that there was nothing more powerful than a great idea well communicated.
The leader of the revolution was Bill Bernbach.
Before Bernbach started Doyle Dane Bernbach, art directors sat in their rooms with their thumbs up their ass, and they waited for a copywriter to hand them copy and say, here, do a layout.
Bernbach's great innovation was marrying art directors, graphic designers really, and copywriters together in the creative team.
It was the first ad agency where an art director was involved in the conception of advertising.
If Bernbach was the father of the creative revolution, these were some of his children.
There were two things going on at Doyle Dane Bernbach. There was Bill Bernbach, who had an extraordinary gift for what advertising should be at that time, taking everything that was traditional and just cutting right through it and shocking you into an awareness, but with very good taste.
You wanted Bill to like what you did. You wanted to be successful there. And many of us felt, we might have gone other places for more money even, but the whole thing was the cachet of DDB, and the way it was looked upon, by the outside, was more important than money. It was a recognition that you had a certain thing if you were working there.
He also had a gift for attracting very good writers and art directors. And he wanted very good art directors and writers. He had no patience for people who were not superb.
We knew that we were doing things differently than everybody else, and it was a great feeling. It was a wonderful feeling being part of that team. It's like playing for the 1927 Yankees with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
There are a lot of people who are talented who don't want to be surrounded by a lot of other talented people. They don't want the competition of young, talented people around them, but Bill wanted everybody to be a genius.
You're about to enter a beautiful, exciting, wonderful new world. The world of 1960.
Automobiles have always been central to the advertising industry because they've always been central to American culture.
That's really what built America after World War II.
Today, the automobile is part of any American scene. Every man, woman, and child in America could go riding at the same time.
all of the suburbs and all of the roads were built because people were buying cars. So they no longer wanted to live in the city. They could, for the first time, afford a car. So that meant buying a house. That meant buying everything, all the huge items that came with buying a house, and having a car, and taking leisurely trips on the weekends, not having to worry about parking it in the city.
For the first time in history, you'll see not one, not two, but three completely new kinds of Ford cars for 1960.
And you can measure your life and you measure your achievement as an upwardly mobile citizen on the basis of, okay, now is your time to own a Chevy, now is your time to own an Olds, now is your time to own a Buick, now is your time for a Cadillac.
Auto ads in the 1950s featured lots of illustration and copy. Television was full of highly produced and stylized commercials.
And now, the world's most wanted car.
Thunderbird, the finest of fine cars, the last word
In 1959, one little car changed all that.
Think small for Volkswagen. You know, that's a real shocker because up until then, the idea that as an American, you get better, your cars get bigger, they get better, you can show off more. This reversed all of those things with two words.
The genius of the Volkswagen Think Small campaign by Doyle Dane Bernbach was it overturned 30 or 40 years of the advertising class-based standard.
Push-button command of all driving ranges.
All previous automotive ownership and design and advertising had been about increasing degrees of showing off. The more you rise in life, the bigger the car, the shinier the wheels, the bigger the tail fins. Volkswagen was a complete reversal. It was a tiny little car. It was not very fast moving. It was funny looking.
And it was German.
Volkswagen was this little German car that everybody disliked because it was too close after the war.
So we got to sell a Nazi car in a Jewish town.
Bernbach's team ignored the car's origins and instead embraced its quirkiness.
Instead of run from that, they ran to it. And they determined there's a whole other class of consumer out there that not only is not seduced by the increasing showiness of Detroit, but wants to run screaming from it.
A class tired of keeping up with the Joneses.
With his money, Mr. Jones bought himself a $3,000 car. With his money, Mr. Krempler bought himself a new refrigerator, a new range, 2 new television sets, and a brand new Volkswagen.
A consumer not buying into the auto industry's policy of planned obsolescence.
They advertised in a contrarian way to contrarian consumers. And they caught a wave that was rising in the country. Remember when this is coming out. It's 12 years since the end of World War II. It's 12 years of unending consumerism, 12 years of almost crass growth. And there's a large body of people and wisdom in the country, always has been, that says, you know, all this consumption, it's not good for the soul.
The jet age in the U.S. began in 1958 when Pan American Airways began regular service with the Boeing 707.
The magnificent new jet, with a wing spread that's bigger than the entire distance of the Wright brothers' first flight.
Jets made travel cross-country and overseas faster and easier. But the airlines had an image problem.
It was a time when all planes had come out of the Army, and the planes that came out of the Army were gray. When you were in them, they were as dull as they could possibly be.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
Everybody looked as though they could fly the plane. The girls looked like they could fly the plane. Everybody looked like some kind of an Army officer.
Hello?
In 1965, Braniff, a Dallas-based company known as a backwater airline, launched a modern image campaign. Mary Wells, now at Jack Tinker Associates, made it her mission to make air travel sexy.
Our hostesses wear reversible coats of almond green and apricot, space helmets to keep out the rain, red space suits, and sometimes something a little more comfortable. And since we fly to Mexico and South America, art from Peru, Brazil, and Argentina. Cha-cha-cha.
There was a red one, there was a blue one, there was a green one, there was a yellow one. The best one was the very first 747, which was orange. We got gorgeous stewardesses in those days. That was an okay thing to do. They were all young and beautiful with beautiful legs, and we put Emilio Pucci outfits on them. And we made it fun to fly. People flew with us because they were having a theatrical experience. From the minute you stepped up and checked in until you got on that plane and until you got to your destination, you were having fun.
In 1968, Braniff brought in Wells' former DDB colleague, George Lewis.